Right now, guys, I'm going to take you through a really simple cottage pie recipe. This meal is so hearty and it's simple to make as well. If you want, you can make up a big batch of this and then cut it into smaller portions, put it in the freezer and then have it later in the week. The recipe that I'm going to make should make about 3 or 4 hearty portions, but if you want, you can double up on the ingredients and then you have a meal to last you even longer. It's really cheap for all the ingredients to get them together, and it'll take you maximum an hour and a half to make this. So what more could you want? An hour and a half for a meal that's going to last you a whole week. So the main thing that you're going to need for this is a casserole dish, or anything else that you can find that's deep enough to layer the ingredients up and that's safe enough to go in the oven as well. Just for the ingredients, they're super cheap, super easy to find as well. Nothing strange going in here. So what you need is 1 kilogram of potatoes, 4 or 5 decent sized carrots, 1 onion. Then you're going to need half a head of broccoli. You're going to need 1 beef stock cube, 500 grams of mince meat, and then you're going to need 100 grams of mushrooms. There's also some salt and pepper if you want to put that in just to flavour it up a little bit. And then I've got some olive oil here. You don't need olive oil, any oil that you can find will do for this. Also, if you guys have any other vegetables at home that you want to get rid of to put in, you can put in sweet corn, celery, you can put in garlic, red peppers, literally anything can go into this. So it's just whatever you want to make it. Okay, let's get going. So first thing first, we're going to turn on the oven just to preheat that. It's 180 degrees, or if you've got a gas oven, that's the gas mark of 4. So we're just going to go ahead and turn this on. So now we're going to peel and chop all of the vegetables we've got. If you've got any extra that you want to add in here yourself, now's the time to do it. So I'm just going to start by peeling the carrots as well. If you guys don't have a peeler, I have a little trick that I'll be showing you later on how you can peel the carrots. So when you're cutting up the carrots, just do it as simple as possible, really. This is an easy meal, so the easier you make it for yourself, the better. It's just to get them thin enough so that they will cook for you and you're not eating raw carrots in your cottage pie. When it comes to cutting vegetables, you really do want to have a sharp knife, because if you have a blunt knife, you could end up just not cutting the vegetables at all and cutting yourself. It also saves so much time as well if you have a sharp knife. Okay, so now we are going to start chopping the onion. If you're like me and you cry every single time, you can try wearing some sunglasses. You might look a bit strange, but that's a good way to stop yourself from crying. Also, you can soak the onion in cold water, or just run it under the tap as well if you want. I'm going to brave this one out and try to cut this without crying. So if you just start by cutting the onion in half and then you turn it over on its sides, it's so much easier to cut that way. And then what you can do as well is don't cut all the way down through the onion, just cut it slightly. And then when you turn it around the other way to cut, you can dice it up then. So again, guys, it doesn't matter what way you cut this up. I've just chopped it there, but if you want, you can then chop it again a bit more. Just get them even smaller. Just chop anywhere other than your hands. Okay, and now we just have to do the broccoli. So we're going to use half a head of broccoli. So we don't need this bit of the broccoli. So then all we need is the flour. So you don't need to chop this. You can just break them up and put them in here. Again, whatever makes things easier for you. If you want to chop them, you can chop them. If you want to just break them up, you can break them up. There we go. That's all our vegetables done. So we're going to put them aside for now. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put the potatoes into the saucepan just to get them nice and soft for the mashed potato. So I'm just going to fill up this with water and start to heat that up before I put the potatoes in. So you want to make sure that you've got enough water in that it will cover the potatoes, but you don't want too much water that it's going to boil all over the top, or that it'll take ages to heat up either. So we will turn this on, and if you put it up full, because you want it to get nice and hot. Now, you don't have to peel the potatoes or anything. This is really, really easy. You can just throw them straight in, but because these are a bit big, I'm just going to chop them to make them smaller so that they will cook faster. Again, there's nothing fancy to this. Just cut them whatever way you want to. The whole point of this recipe is just for things to be simple, for it to be fast. You don't have to put too much TLC into this at all. As you can see, things might get a little bit messy with all of the vegetables, but that doesn't matter. You can clean that all up at the end. You're using 1 kilogram of potatoes, so just make sure that you weigh it beforehand. I used about 5 or 6 kind of medium-sized potatoes, so it really depends on the potatoes. If you don't have a weighing scales, maybe use about 3 big potatoes, or if you've got small potatoes, you might want to use about 10 of them instead. So we're just going to put the lid on over the potatoes now, just to help the heat stay in there and they boil up as fast as possible. And now we are going to move on to cooking the meat. We're going to turn this up to full power. And just put a little bit of oil on. Like I said, it doesn't matter what oil you have. If you want to be a little bit healthy, you could use coconut oil, olive oil as well, but any type of oil will work. So now I'm just going to put in the mince. Be careful here, because if your oil is very hot, it might splash off at you. Mince meat always comes with this thing at the bottom, so just make sure that you take that off, because you don't want to be cooking that. Okay, so while the mince is cooking, we want to break it up just so that it evenly cooks everywhere. I'm just going to turn this down a little bit now. Probably just to a medium heat, just so it doesn't burn or anything. It's just cooking there nice and evenly. Mince is so easy to cook. It literally cooks within a few minutes, and you can tell as well when it's cooked. Some other things you can't really tell, you have to cut them open and everything, but with this it's absolutely perfect. You can see it cooking away. If you don't like mincemeat, you can swap it with anything else, so you can use lamb, anything that you want really. If you're vegetarian, you can use lentils either. You can get the mincemeat in the supermarket, you can get it in a butcher. The mincemeat is nearly done now, and when it's all done, we're going to drain off the fat. Most important thing to remember is not to put the fat in the sink, because it can solidify and then block the sink, and then you're just going to have lots of different problems. So a good thing to do is pour it into a bowl, and then later on when it's cooled down, put it into the bin so it doesn't go everywhere. Or if you want, you can pour it straight into the bin, but for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it into a bowl and then put it in the bin. So now I'm just going to drain the excess fat away. Sometimes this can be a bit of a juggling act. You have to make sure that the mince doesn't fall out while you're pouring out the fat. But if you just place the spoon up against the meat, then it should pour out no problem. And don't worry about having to get every single drop of fat. It's okay if a little stays in there, because it will cook off later on. Perfect. Okay, put that back on, and now we're going to add our vegetables in here as well. We're just going to cook these for a few minutes just so they can heat up, and then we will add them into the casserole dish later on. I never put in the mushrooms! I just realised as my vegetables were cooking that I forgot to put my mushrooms in, so I'm going to chop them up now and I'm going to put them in as well. The great thing about mushrooms is, though, they take a lot less time to cook, so everything works out, it'll be all okay. Again, nothing fancy with these mushrooms, just chop them up whichever way you want. Okay, so I'm going to throw them in now with the rest of the vegetables and the meat, and they can just cook away there. Okay, so while that's cooking away, I'm just going to boil the kettle for the stock. So we're going to put in 1 stock cube. So I've got a measuring jug here. If you don't have a measuring jug, that's absolutely fine. You can just use a mug instead. It's about 275 milliliters of water, so that is just 1/4 liter. So that is the size of a mug. You don't need a measuring jug. Like I said, if you don't have a jug, just use a mug instead. And then we're just going to get a fork, that's a spoon, and stir this around just to dissolve it so that you don't have any big lumps of stock. There's nothing worse than getting a mouthful of a big piece of stock. It's horrible. Okay, so my stock is pretty much dissolved now, so I'm just going to add it in here. Hopefully it'll fit. If it doesn't fit, it's not a big problem. You can put it into the casserole dish later on. Perfect, it all fits in there. So then I'm just going to give it a stir just so that everything is cooking nice and evenly. You want to put it on a medium heat if you don't already have it on a medium heat, just so that it's not too hot, and then everything will simmer away nicely in here. So our vegetables are simmering away, and I'm just going to check the potatoes and see how they're doing. A good way to check is to get a fork, to stick it into the potatoes. You want to make sure that they're cooked, so if it's any way hard, like it is there, then they're not done. So we're just going to leave them to cook for a few minutes, and we'll come back to it. I'm just going to check now how the potatoes are doing because they've been in there for about 20 minutes. So just put the fork in to see how they are. Perfect. The fork is going all the way through, so that means that they're cooked and they're now ready to be drained. So one way of doing this is to use the lid and to slightly put it over it and pour it down the sink. If you have a colander, that's another way you can do it. Pour the potatoes in there, pour them back into the pot. Or if you have a sieve, you can do that either. So we're just going to use it by using the top of the lid here over the sink. Really careful here not to burn yourself. A good thing is to use a hand towel as well. Okay. So just move your face back so that the steam doesn't burn you or anything. I'm just going to pour out all the water. Don't try to do it all at one go because all the potatoes might fall out on you. So if you just do it slowly. Perfect. So that's all the water out there now. So I've got a potato masher here. If you don't have a potato masher, you can just use a fork. So I'm going to mash it first, and then when it's nearly mashed, I'm going to put in some milk just to make it a bit creamier. So I'm just going to put some milk in now. And if you're like me and you love your tea, you're probably always going to have milk in your fridge anyway. So just put a little bit in at a time. Don't put too much in, because otherwise your mashed potato could get really, really soggy. The milk also helps to soften up the potatoes more so you can mash it up. It depends how you like your mashed potatoes. Some people like it really kind of soft and almost liquidy. Some people like it really dry. But the sauce from the vegetables will also help to make it a little bit softer as well. Perfect. So that's the mashed potato done. Now we're going to put everything into our casserole dish and then put it into the oven. We'll turn off the heat now on the vegetables. Gonna grab our casserole dish. So we're going to put the vegetables in now. You want to put absolutely everything in here, the sauce as well. Just put it all in there. So just use the back of the wooden spoon there just to spread it out so it's nice and even. And now we're going to put our mashed potato in. So you're just going to spoon it on top. So we'll just spread this out now and see how we're doing. Again, if you just use the back of the spoon. You want to make sure that all of the meat and vegetables are covered by the potato. That's everything covered up now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the fork. I'm just going to make some lines like this, just so it gets a bit crispy when you put it in the oven. Just have a bit of fun with it. Perfect. That's it ready. We're going to put it into our preheated oven for 45 minutes. If you put the tray just in the middle so it cooks nice and evenly. That's it in there, and we're going to leave it there now for 45 minutes. And in the meantime, if you want, you can set your table or you can clean up, whatever you want to do. It's been about 45 minutes now, so we're just going to check on the cottage pie and see if it's done. Perfect. It's lovely and brown and plenty of steam there. So we're going to take it out. Make sure that you use something to take the dish out of the oven. If you have oven mitts, that's great. If not, you can use a towel, but roll it up plenty of times. Perfect, that's amazing. It's nice and brown on top, so it'll be nice and crispy. We're going to leave it for about 10 minutes because that's super hot, but then after 10 minutes we can start to serve it up. You can cut it into tiny portions as well, or big portions, whatever you like, and you can put it into freezer bags or you can put it into plastic tubs, put it in the freezer and then keep it for later.